Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Rula Deeb. I'm a senior principal at Geosyntac Consultants in Oakland, California, and the coordinator of this webinar series on behalf of SERDP and ESTCP. I have the pleasure of facilitating today's event. This webinar focuses on DoD-funded research efforts to develop PFAS-free fire suppression systems and fire extinguishing foams. The first speaker will be Mr. Perrin Burnett from AFCAC, followed by Dr. Jaspreet Dow from Molecule. They will share demonstration results for a high-pressure water mist and performance modeling results for long-chain surface-active ionic liquids. Each of the two presentations will be followed by a brief Q&A session, and depending on how we're doing on time, we may conclude the webinar with a longer Q&A session. The next few slides provide instructions on optimizing your webinar experience. If you have not done so already, please download Zoom at the link shown here and provide it to you in your webinar registration confirmation email. If you cannot download Zoom, you can view the slides using a compatible internet browser such as Firefox, IE, or Edge, and by creating a free Zoom account. If you have technical difficulties or if your screen freezes, try keying in Control and F5 to do a hard refresh of your browser. And in case of continued difficulties, please download the PDF of the slides from the webinar webpage and call into the conference line provided to you in your webinar confirmation email. We're going to also drop a link to those slides if you wish to download them in the chat box. Another way to view today's proceedings is to go to the SERDP and ESTCP YouTube channel at the link shown here as we are live streaming this webinar. Please keep in mind that today's broadcast is listen only. You can submit questions using the Q&A box on your screen. You do not need to wait until the Q&A sessions to submit your questions. We do encourage you to get them in ahead of time. And when you do submit your question, we ask that you add your organization name at the end of your question so that we can identify you during the Q&A periods. Please do not submit questions in the chat box. That's only reserved for comments related to technical difficulties. So just use the Q&A box on your screen. And with that, I would like to introduce Dr. John Lascala, who is the SERDP and ESTCP Program Manager for Weapons Systems and Platforms. Prior to joining SERDP and ESTCP, John served as the Chief of the Manufacturing Sciences and Technology Branch in the Weapons and Materials Research Directorate of the DEFCOM Army Research Lab. Throughout his career, John worked on bio-based thermosetting resins for adhesives and coatings and environmentally friendly polymers for composites, adhesives, coatings, and additive manufacturing applications. John is the recipient of numerous awards for his work on polymers, including the 2013 Presidential Green Chemistry and Engineering Challenge Award for Renewable Thermostats, and the 2010 ESTCP Project of the Year. John, please proceed.
Thank you, Rula. I'm happy to welcome everyone to today's SERDP and ESTCP webinar. The next few slides will provide a quick overview of SERDP and ESTCP. SERDP and ESTCP are the Department of Defense's installation innovation programs. These programs develop and demonstrate innovative, scalable technologies that enhance military readiness, improve warfighter capabilities, and strengthen defense infrastructure. The programs prioritize common sense, cost-effective solutions that support operational effectiveness and reduce regulatory burdens and military installations. SERDP invests in research that supports and secures DoD installations. It is managed alongside its partner program, ESTCP, which demonstrates and validates novel technologies in military installations. ESTCP demonstrations collect unbiased cost and performance data to support defense managers and end users with the information they need to implement approved technologies and facilitate DoD adoption at scale. SERDP and ESTCP report to the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Energy Resilience and Optimization, headquartered at the Pentagon. We work closely with other OSD programs, the services, and defense partners to facilitate the adoption of successful technologies. By fostering cross-program integration, we ensure that promising innovations do not remain isolated research efforts, but transition effectively into operational use. Our projects align with national security priorities and provide the data and capabilities that DoD leadership need to shape guidance and instruction aimed at securing our military installations. Our science and technologies protect built and natural infrastructure, strengthen DoD chemical and material resilience, and ensure the health and safety of our warfighters. Our research portfolios are organized across 6 program areas. The Environmental Restoration Program area focuses on managing PFAS and other emerging chemicals of concern in the environment. The Resource Conservation and Resilience Program area focuses on sustaining the 28 million acres of DoD lands for test and training operations. The Weapon Systems and Platforms Program area that I manage focuses on strengthening DoD's long-term chemical and material resilience, extending the service life of mission-critical weapon systems and platforms while reducing costs and enhancing the safety and efficiency of military operations. The Installation Energy and Water Program area demonstrates and validates technology that improves access to reliable and resilient sources of energy, providing greater flexibility in the control and delivery of power. The Natural Hazards Adaptation Program area demonstrates innovative and cost-effective technologies to ensure DoD installations can withstand and recover from events such as earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, and wildfires. And finally, the Munitions Response Program area focuses on unexploded ordnance in the underwater environment, including ponds, lakes, rivers, estuaries, and coastal ocean areas. After years of successful investment, the program area is currently transitioning technologies to end users through a series of test sites and live demonstrations. SERDP and ESTCP are a critical funding source and partner for hundreds of federal university and industrial R&D efforts. We release solicitations throughout the year. Researchers from federal government, private industry, and research institutions can apply to SERDP and ESTCP for funding opportunities. To receive updates about funding opportunities, program updates, and upcoming webinars, you could sign up for a mailing list at the link on this site, on this slide. SERDP and ESTCP are funding a broad range of PFAS-related projects. You can access an overview of our PFAS program as well as project descriptions on our website. The boxes along the top of the graph illustrate workshops that have been held to develop a strategic plan for addressing PFAS issues. A summary report was prepared for each workshop to summarize the discussions and to identify research, demonstration, and technology transfer needs. To view workshop reports, just click on the associated boxes at the top. This is also on, it's on the website. Each SERDP project has an associated box with the project title, which links to a full description of the project, as well as any reports that have been published as part of the project. Each ESTCP topic listed represents a single topic. Click the project title, go to the project web page. Finally, our webinar series highlights outstanding projects across all our research portfolios. You can find additional information about upcoming webinars at this link. All past webinars are archived and can be accessed using that link. I would like to remind you that a copy of the presentation of today's session can be downloaded from our webinar webpage. We would appreciate it if you can please take a moment to complete the survey that will pop up at your screen at the end of the webcast. At this point, I'll turn it back over to Rula to introduce today's first speaker. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the webinar.
Thank you so much, John. It's time to start the technical portion of this presentation, and it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Perrin Burnett, who is the Government Technical Lead for the Fire and Emergency Services Research, Development, Test, and Evaluation Team at AFCAC's Airbase Technologies branch, which is located at Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida. Mr. Burnett has served as a co-PI for several fire-related research projects funded by SERDP and ESTCP, including assessment of fluorine-free fire suppression alternatives, new firefighter training tools, and assessment of fire suppression alternatives for DoD facilities, including aircraft hangars. He has several publications related to fire extinguishment and fire safety, and he earned a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Tennessee State University. Perrin, we are delighted to have you. Please get started with your presentation.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I got a little fast there. All right, yes. So this particular presentation is on the water mist system that we tested for SERDP and ESTCP. So let us begin here. So let's go here. All right. So yes, so this is an overview of my slides here. We're gonna start off with. I'm gonna explain to you our test facility, and then I'm gonna explain to you our technical approach, as well as the results and conclusion and the benefits to the DoD at the conclusions. So our high pressure water mist system, the main goal for this project, due to the new the DoD shutdown policy of stopping the use of HFF and PFAS and P4 agents. We were looking for alternatives, alternative to fluorine, PFAS, P4 agents. So we decided to go with the water mist system here. One of our main objectives for this particular project is to provide protection from Class B fuel fires, as well as suited for a hangar. All right, so this right here, this is our test facility here at Tyndall Air Force Base. This is our hangar. It's out in the middle of nowhere. We can do different size fire in this particular location. This is a representative of a small maintenance hangar, and is full of instrumentation for fire testing. So this is our approach for this particular project, our technical approach. Water mist is 99% droplet of water. We decided to use this approach here, the basic 101 for fire, the fire triangle. Everybody knows that it is you remove one of the legs, you lose the fire. You remove oxygen, you lose fire. You remove the heat, you remove fuel. So everybody knows that. So this is our approach. We feel increasing surface area between water droplets and air that will remove the heat, resulting from steam. That will remove the heat as well as the fuel. The water droplet displaces the oxygen, so they will put out the fire as well. And also, water coats flammable surfaces, so that would remove the fuel. That's our approach for this particular project. So to start off, and like most projects, we do modeling for this particular project. We reach out to the University of Maryland to help us out with this particular part of the project. And from their modeling, they found that only high pressure system could extinguish a Class B liquid fuel fire. And I would go into detail on what they mean by extinguish. Low pressure floor mounted located I'm sorry, let me start over. Low pressure floor mounted system could suppress a Class B fire, and I would tell you more about what they mean by suppress as well. What you see there are the results from their modeling. Also, from their model as well, high pressure water system provides fire control, and I will explain to you what they mean by control. Floor nozzle can deflect flame, and we will show you that in our live demonstration. Combine ceiling and floor nozzles better than just ceiling, and I will show you that as well. We figured that they also showed that wind in the hanger really doesn't have a big impact on the performance of the system. Um, the nozzle height less than 3 meters, they have a big impact on the performance as well. And I will go into detail about all of this during my presentation. So, gathering the data from their modeling, we decided to go with the Marioff high fog system, and this is a commercial off-the-shelf system. That is the reason why we went with that. They have a high pressure system ready. All we have to do is get it installed into our hanger that you saw on the previous slide. This particular system operating pressure at 1600 psi. We use it on a 30 by 30 foot concrete pad, activated at different angles, at different nozzles. We have it over the wing nozzle as well as under the wing, and then we also have it when everything is combined. The under the wing and over the wing system is operating. We use the system at 1015 psi. So here's our test scenario. All right. So we use Jet A pool fires. We use 4 gallons, 16 gallons, and 55 gallons. We also use a nacelle flowing jet fuel, Jet A, at a rate of 4 gallons per minute. To the right there, we instrumentize our mock-up with heat flux sensors. Those red dots there shows you the location of those particular heat flux sensors.
Baron, this is Rula. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're picking up a lot of background noise, ruffling paper, potentially a keyboard. So if you don't mind speaking into your speaker and try to minimize that noise, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right. So, probably my chair. All right. So, this is what we mean by fire control. This is the performance criteria, and this is what we mean by fire control. This is limit the heat release rate of the fire, pre-wet combustion, and sealing controls sealing gas temperature to prevent structure damage. This is where our heat flux sensor read less than 50 kilowatts per square meter. That's our goal, to keep it beneath that. And with that reading from our heat flux sensors, we consider the fire control. Here, what we mean by suppression, the success requirement is reduce the heat under 35 kilowatts per square meter within 30 seconds of activation. All right. And fully extinguish mean fully extinguish the fire, which has a heat flux sensors read 0 kilowatts per square meter within the 45 seconds of activation. So here's our results for the test, and this is the result of suppression versus extinguishment. All right. So as you see, we got it all broke down into 4-gallon pool fires, the 16-gallon pool fires, as well as the nacelle with the flow rate of 4 gallons per minute, and we also had a result for the 55-gallon pool fires. The green means the fire was suppressed, extinguished. Then the end means it was not. As you can see, with the 4-gallon pool fire, that the fire underneath the wing was successfully extinguished when we combined the two under the wing nozzle as well as over the wing nozzle. And what we mean by over the wing nozzle and under the wing nozzle, that is the floor mounted nozzles and the ceiling mount nozzles. When we combined the two, we were successful. Under the ground, we were successful, but over the wing, we were not successful through any of the tests. as you can see, because of the way the nozzle sprays from the top, getting blocked by the wing. So this is the more detail of the test results. The 4-gallon pool fire, as you can see, under the wing, over the wing, and combine the results. So when we have it suppressed under the wing and within under the 30 seconds. In fact, we got it underneath the 35 kilowatts per square meter under 3 seconds. I mean, we got it right at 3 seconds, as well as the 23 seconds you see there for extinguishment under the wing. Visual extinguishment, that means we use by sight, and we also use imagery. We use a IR sensor imagery to give us that number. As you can see with the 16-gallon pool fire, that is our results. And I forgot to tell you, the pre-burns in the first column, that's how long we allowed the fire to burn before we activated the system. Catch up here. So here, this is a test showing our 16-gallon jet fuel fire. And this is the over-the-wing nozzle trying to extinguish this particular fire. So we dump the fuel, we lit it, we give it the pre-burn, and then we activate the system. You will see what happens. And that's the system activated. There you go. Let's go down. All right, so this is the fire that you see with the IR camera. This is 30 seconds after activation. So also the nacelle fire. So remember we with this nacelle fire, we had a flow rate of 4 gallons per minute. We also, way the nacelle is built, we try to extinguish the fire inside of the nacelle. So we position the nacelle at different angles to try to get the nozzles to extinguish the fire internally. And as you can see, the results for that would combine the floor nozzle as well as the ceiling nozzles. We did get the fire suppressed within underneath the 30-second time that the performance criteria that I spoke about earlier, as well as combined when we changed the location perpendicular to the mock-up. We got it suppressed underneath the 30-second time. As far as extinguishment, we were not successful on that particular on those, and as well as visual, we still saw visual fire for those during those tests. And the visual fires means that it might not been near the heat flux sensor, but it was still, we could still see it as well. Basically, the floor nozzle does its job by pushing the fire away from the aircraft. So it's protecting the asset. But complete extinguishment, it suppressed the fire long enough for firefighters to arrive to take over, which is which is mainly the goal. For the 55-gallon pool fire, um, we were successfully suppressing this fire when we used the floor nozzles as well as the ceiling nozzles. Uh, it, it was under our suppression time of 30 seconds. We got it to 17 seconds, as you can see. We did not completely extinguish the fire, but we did suppress the fire using ceiling and floor nozzles. So for this particular setup, initial cost was anywhere from for $2 million for a 16,000 square foot hangar with an overwing system, which is the ceiling nozzles. It's over $20 million for a 138,000 square foot hangar with a combined system, which means the floor as well as the ceiling nozzles. To retrofit existing hangar, it depends on the hangar as well as what is inside of the hangar. Some hangars have trench systems, so it varies. So we couldn't really put together a cost for that using the commercial off-the-shelf system that we use. So the floor system we selected is unidirectional, but is designed for the aircraft to be put perpendicular to the nozzles. For the aircraft to be perpendicular to the nozzles. Uh, One of the things is the water mist system creates a fog droplet which can obscure the vision for the firefighters when they arrive. As we noticed, as you saw in that video, it's very smoky inside of the hangar when the system activates. So, what we conclude from our tests that the high pressure water mist system is a viable alternative uh, to foam system. Uh, our test did validate the CFDs by the University of Maryland. Also, we can extinguish some the 4-gallon size fire, but we successfully suppress which and extinguish some of the fires, which give enough time for firefighters to react and take over. We suppress the fire long enough for firefighters to get there to take over and complete the job. One of the so yes, as I stated before, our system does meet the 2020 NDAA, which explained the stop use of HFF. This is a good alternative for that particular requirement. That concludes my presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Perrin. We have received a number of questions. So we're going to start with one from the Defense Centers for Public Health in Aberdeen for the mist applied fire suppression system. Are you aware of any military facilities that have adopted this approach? And what are the limitations with using such a system versus using a PFAS-based system?
This is the goal for this one is to replace a PFAS-based system. Because if we use a PFAS-based system, as of October 2024, the Department of Defense made it that we cannot no longer use a FFF-based system at all. So this is the goal for this is to replace that particular system. No, we do not have any base that is using a high pressure water mist system just yet. One of the reasons is the cost, and also another reason is that the hangars is is already built, and to get a system like this would be very expensive.
Thank you, Perrin. This
Yes,
next
ma'am.
question is from the Navy. What was the deciding factor on the choice of pre-burn time?
Deciding factor for that, we wanted a good challenge for the system. We wanted to get a good fire. Also, the heat flux sensors determines what's when is a good time to activate the system. We did a whole lot of preliminary tests before. We did a whole lot of preliminary tests before we start testing to determine what is a good pre-burn time for the 4 gallon fire versus and the 16-gallon fire. As you can see, it's different. We wanted a challenging fire, like a worst case scenario fire.
Thank you. This next question is from SafeSpell. You
Hey.
mentioned trenches in the implementation assessment. Are trenches necessary for the system to function successfully? And were trenches or drainage systems utilized during the testing?
No, no, it was not utilized during this particular test. No, yes, this will require trenching. Um, that's our next step for this particular test. Is to use a company like that Shakespeare company to do similar tests. Trenching will be necessary for the floor nozzles. Yes, and we also looked at other company that has a trench system. Um, so we looked at that as well. So that might be part of our test next. The hard part of the trenches is it requires a whole lot of retrofitting for the hanger. An hour hanger, uh, yeah, we couldn't do it. But yes, we're that's our next goal, and yes, it does require some trenching for the floor nozzles. But for the ceiling nozzles, you just attach it to install into existing hangers.
Great, thank you. I have a couple of follow-up questions from SafeSpell. Can you let us know if the system manually activated during testing?
Yes, we did. We hit our heat flux number, then we activated it.
And what detection systems would be used in a full-scale hanger to activate? And what would time to activation look like?
That I don't know. I could get back with you on that. I think it varies from hanger to hanger. But we did ours manually. But yes, we can find that out. What system they use to activate. We didn't do
Great,
any automatic activation.
thank you, Perrin.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
talked, this is a question from NASA. You gave the flow rate, but can you give us an estimate of the volume of contaminated water that was generated during your test?
The volume of contaminated water. So here's the good part about testing here at Tyndall. Um, we capture all of the water, as much water as we can on that test, on those tests, and we pump it into a tank that we have, and we take it back to our fire pit to get disposed of. We have a complete system where we have a complete evaporator system that we evaporate rate the water. The total volume of water for all of those tests, I do not know the volume, but we can calculate it by the nozzles. We can calculate, per nozzle, per flow rate of the nozzles. But I do not have that number. But the good thing about it is we collect all that water that you saw. Uh, we have we use a vacuum pump and suck out all the water, put it in the tank, transfer it um, to our fire pit, and it's a fully enclosed area. And then we have an evaporator that evaporates the that water. Since we are considered a legacy site, any water that touches our particular location, we have to treat as a hazardous waste. So we evaporate. We were evaporating water about 5,000 gallons per day. We did an upgrade. Now we at up to 6,500 gallons per day. So all that water gets evaporated, and also we run it through different types of filtration system, i.e., we use plants as well as human hair, and as well as dog hair, they call it, to filter out PFAS P4. Then we run it through our evaporator and evaporate it.
Thank you. This next question is from EA Engineering. So if you have PFAS-based fire suppression system, is it possible to decontaminate the existing components and then upgrade the system? Or would this technology that you described require a complete teardown and overhaul?
That is a loaded question. So as far as the PFAS, if your system has PFAS in it, we did a test with these fire trucks that we put HMS foam in there, and we rinsed it out multiple times to see how much PFAS is left in that particular truck after we rinse it out multiple times. I guess you have to see. I think if you have ran, my belief, if you have ran HMF in your system before, I think that is considered. I think that considered a contaminated site. I think you have to get a whole new system. But you can run water and you see how much PFAS and P4 is left in your system. But here we were told anything that had PFAS and HMF in it in the past is considered. If you add water to it, considered a contaminant.
Thank you, Perrin. This next question is from Florida Polytechnic University. How does the high pressure water mist system compare to current AFFF foam systems in terms of the pressure used? And would the water mist system, if it is higher pressure, would it pose a danger to the condition of the assets being extinguished relative to AFFF-based systems?
No, so the reason why, if go back to one of the slides, the reason why we went with high pressure is to cool down the place, to suppress the heating load in the system. With the high pressure, with the water droplets, the goal is to remove the oxygen, and also bring down the heating load. No, it would not mess up the system. No, it would not mess up. It wouldn't damage any system at all. It's just water droplets. Our rate was 1,015 psi. That was our pressure for that particular system. That system can go up to 1,600 psi, but we only use as much.
All right. Thank you. Maybe one more question before we transition to the next speaker. Are there any options to just target fire suppression from the floor rather than from above?
Yes. In fact, this one of the things my boss suggested. From the side, as well as we tried it from the ceiling and from the floor. You also can do it from the side. You know, a whole lot of obstacles can block the shooting it from the side, like a toolbox or other stuff. So, but yes, we're looking into that as well. That was suggested by my boss yesterday, in fact.
Great. Great. Thank you so much, Perrin, for a great presentation. We still have some questions that we haven't gotten to.
Yeah.
So we'll try, depending on time, we'll try to get to them towards the end of the webinar. At this point, we're going to go ahead and transition to our second presenter today, who's Dr. Jaspreet Dow. Jaspreet is the Vice President of Research and Development at Molecule in Tampa, Florida. His career includes significant roles at SRI International in California, Florida Polytechnic University in Florida, and Punjabi University in India. He has successfully commercialized 7 technologies and led over 20 research and product development initiatives, including projects funded by SERDP and ESTCP. And most recently, in 2022, he was recognized by the National Academy of Inventors as one of the world's top emerging inventors. Over the last few years, Dr. Dow has focused his research efforts on developing a fluorine-free firefighting formulation using ionic liquid-based surfactants. And in terms of degrees, he earned a bachelor's degree in biology and chemistry and a master's degree in inorganic chemistry from Himachal Pradesh University, an MBA from Punjabi University, and a doctorate in chemistry from Punjab University, all in India. Jaspreet, we're happy to have you. Please get started.
Yeah, thank you, Ruler. I really appreciate giving me this opportunity to share my research on developing a firefighting foam, a fluorine-free firefighting foams that will replace PFAS from the firefighting foams. After listening to parents, really very informative, and I think these kind of webinars do open more opportunities for people who participate in these webinars to collaborate. I'm so very happy that I have the opportunity to share our experience. So as far as our research is concerned, we focused on fluorine-free firefighting foams. During this presentation, I'm going to share some of the results with the use of ionic liquid as the surfactants. We'll also share some of the very critical findings or the learnings that we had during the small-scale testing, which we did it in the lab, and also when we went outside at NRL, also at Battelle. Some of our firefighting initial initiatives were tested at Tyndall Air Force Base, so it all brings that together. And then at the end, with conclusion remarks and some of the findings that will benefit to the Department of Defense. And as Farron has already covered a lot on the Class B fires, I won't spend that much of time on it, but I do want to mention the use of AFFF, which contains PFAS, for Class B fire suppression. So AFFF has been a tremendous material as far as suppressing the fire from Class B fires are concerned, due to the reason that the PFAS in AFFF is a very unique molecule which has the hydrophobic and the lipophobic functionality having coexist on the same molecule that allows it to form a seal over the burning fuel, and as such, it cuts the oxygen supply and also allows the foam to spread very quickly and efficiently on the hot fuel surface. But one critical property which we really think has worked for PFAS is its interaction or non-interaction with the fuel vapors or the hot fuel molecule during the fire extinguishing operations. So we all are aware of the concerns about the PFAS. We are aware of the initiative taken where the use of PFAS is no longer valid for the firefighting operations. So there was a need which was felt to develop a solution for Class B fires which doesn't contain PFAS. But the fluorine-free PFAS faces many challenges. And some of those challenges are that because of the surface tension, it doesn't go as low as the fluorinated surfactants. A sealing thin film is not formed on the fuel. And then there is no lipophobicity on the hydrophobic part of the fluorine-free surfactants. So for that reason, there is some level of an interaction between the fuel vapors as well as the hot fuel surface with the foam, making the foam less stable. And also during the operation, it has been observed that these surfactants pick fuel from the fuel surface, leading to sometime which we call the ghost flame or the flame burning beneath the foam blanket. So thinking of all these challenges, we came up with an idea of using surface active ionic liquid as surfactants to provide an effective and eco-friendly fire suppression on the Class B fires. And our target was to come up with a foam which is stable on the hot fuel surface, which cools the hot fuel and effectively seals off the flammable vapors. But at the same time, and this came up with as we started working on it, we thought that probably some kind of a self-healing component needs to be there in the foam so that when the surfactant interacts with the fuel vapor or they get desorbed or they get reacted or burned, those should be very efficiently replaced with the new surfactant molecule, leading to a property of the foam giving an excellent burn back resistance. And remember, initially, when these fluorine-free foams were being tested, yes, they were inferior in terms of fire extinguishing time. They were much inferior in terms of burn back resistance time. So why choose ionic liquid? And I still remember, and I heard that there was a question from Florida Poly, that's the time that when we proposed my stint at Florida Poly, that I proposed the idea of using ionic liquid because ionic liquid has high heat of vaporization. They have very high thermal degradation temperatures. Some of the thermal degradation temperature is very close to the PFAS material in AFFF. In addition to that, the ionic liquid, because that you can tune the cationic or the anionic part of the ionic liquid, that allows you to have a very effective fire suppression and the burn back resistance due to some level of resistance to the interaction with the fuel vapors at the elevated temperature. But also, in addition to that, these ionic liquid enhances the solubility of the surfactants and suppresses its precipitation, especially in seawater. So ionic liquid in seawater resists the precipitation while maintaining the surface active trait. So I will share some of the data here that the surface tension or the dynamic surface tension or the foamability, some of those criteria are not that impacted when you dissolve these surface active ionic liquids in seawater as comparison to that in fresh water. So how did we start? We started where there's a plethora of those ionic liquids which are available. There's a lot of data. So we did some theoretical modeling. We also used Cosmos screening to obtain spreading coefficient values of a lot of ionic liquid, single ionic liquids or ionic liquid in the presence of other surfactant in there, and then chose the ionic liquid which gives us near positive 0 or above spreading coefficient values. Because again, I'm saying initially we thought that the whole scenario is all about the surface tension and the spreading coefficient. One other thought that we had it was carbon-fluorine bond is the most polar bond. The electronegativity difference is maximum, and that is where it draws the lipophobicity or the hydrophobicity or the non-benign nature of these PFAS materials. We thought, okay, what if we replace fluorine with oxygen? So with a theoretical calculation, we wanted to know if there is an advantage. And to our surprise, the replacement of fluorine with the oxygen in the long chain actually led to some level of decrease in the surface active properties of the surfactants. There was increase in the surface tension, and what we probably could think about is that these long chains actually had some kind of a folded conformations and allowing it to have a higher surface tension than you normally anticipate with the long chain. So keeping all those learnings from theoretical modeling or Cosmos screening, we went ahead and synthesized close to 30 different ionic liquids with different cationic group and different anionic group, starting with imidazolium, pyridinium, and also choline chloride with different alkyl chain length from C8 to C18 with a view to have a surface active ionic liquid that will give us the surface tension very close to 20 millinewton per meter. So we did the experimental screening using the force tensiometer. We studied the CMCs of the various ionic liquid. We mixed different ionic liquids. As I said earlier, we looked into the different chain length. Normally, it is expected that as the chain length increases, the surface tension also decrease. We found it to a major extent, but when the chain length increases more than 14 carbon atoms, that's when the surface tension starts increasing. We also mixed different ionic liquids with different chain lengths together in a solution in order to determine or in order to find out the impact of these chain lengths on the surface tension. And that also gives us some mixed result, but mostly in that case there was an increase in surface tension. The idea was also to look into what if the long chains are attached to the same cationic or the same anionic group called the geminal surfactants. And we did a detailed analysis on that. And our findings were that the single chain ionic liquids had lower surface tension than compared to the double chain. So we didn't see that impact. And also in combination with the anionic surfactant, also the single chain ionic liquid were much more effective and efficient in reducing the surface tension at the lower CMC values. So if you see in this slide, between the single chain and the double chain surfactant, the CMC value is almost an order of magnitude higher in a double chain surfactant. So once we screened or shortlisted the ionic liquids, means the cation that gave us the best surface active properties, the chain length or the mixture of the chain length, once we identified it, we started looking into developing a fluorine-free formulation, type 3, and initially we also looked into the type 6 formulation, and we started studying its surface tension. And what we found was that in addition to these ionic liquids, some other hydrocarbon surfactant needs to be added for us to have a greater density of surfactant molecule packed at the interface, which is very easily that you can see it from the increase in the CMC of the solution with also the further decrease in the surface tension. So we obtained a formulation which had a near positive spreading coefficient. And we were very happy that, okay, probably we were very close to finding a solution which will extinguish the firefighting foam, which will extinguish the Class B fires. So we started testing that. Some of these testings were done at the firefighters' locations, and we tested in gasoline, we tested with hexane, and then we compared the result with the PFAS. So what we found was that the fire extinguishing time that we obtained with one of the formulation is very close to AFFF. And seeing that result, we got excited and we said, okay, let's look into that. Since we started with a very small initiative in a very small lab, and for us to do large scale testing at 28 square feet testing, it was not possible. So we started looking into that. Are there any learnings from these small scale testing that will allow us to predict the performance of these PFAS-free formulation on a larger scale fires. So we looked into the surface tension, we looked into the bubble count, doing the DFA analysis, we looked into the radius of the bubble size, and then we found a correlation which linked that the surface tension, the radius of the bubbles, and the bubble count are the most important criteria in order to have a firefighting foam which will have a good performance when tested on a large scale. So we were even thinking at that time that probably why go for a large scale fire? We have all these observations and probably we have deciphered a code. And keeping that on all that in mind, we went to NRL for testing on a 28 square feet fire with gasoline and jet fuel. And guess what? We failed that miserably. The foam extinguished the Jet A fuel fire, but longer than what is there in the mil spec requirement. It took 50 seconds to extinguish it. The burn back resistance time was also shorter than the requirement, and it failed to extinguish the fire. And for us, it was a big setback, but at the same time, there were learnings from it. And what were those learnings? The learnings were that the fuel foam interaction is very critical to have a good quality fluorine-free firefighting foam. The stability of the foam at the fuel foam interface, especially at the elevated temperature, is very critical. The foam stability, along with the cooling impact of the foam, is also critical because for me, when I was standing, it's very difficult to even stand when this 28 square feet fire is being done. There's very high temperature in there. And then what we also observed was that the flames were coming through the foam blanket. So that tells me is that the fuel is readily being transported from the surface of the fuel through the foam blanket and getting in the environment. And that also impacted the burn back resistance. That is for the first time that we realized that the foam stability is a criteria. The interaction with the fuel is a criteria, especially at an elevated temperature, and some level of interaction will always take place. So we need to come up with a formulation where any of these interaction eating up the surfactant molecules should be replaced. We went back on the board and started looking into how we can do it on a small lab scale. So that we designed a Ross mile column which had two compartments, one compartment for the fuel and the other compartment for the foam. And this Ross mile column gave us the capability to control the temperature both on the fuel side as well as on the foam side. We could heat the fuel to various temperature. We took the temperature from 40 degrees C to 60 degrees C for two different types of fuel, hexane and gasoline. And we started looking into the stability of the foam. From the height of the foam and also from the travel of the fuel vapors across that foam blanket. So this system gave us a lot of information, and we tested various fluorine-free foams. We looked into which are those formulations which gave us the maximum stability and the minimum interaction with the fuel. And that allowed us to further improve our formulation. And we started testing it in the lab on a smaller scale using a glass pan, which was around about 9 inches of diameter. We tested it with hexane, started it with hexane and heptane as a fuel. And as you can see in these pictures here, for the first time, we had an evidence that the fuel or some kind of a film formation is taking place, that there is some level of a self-healing property. So after extinguishing the fire, we use the propane torch to reignite the fuel, and there was a lot of resistance shown by the foam, which didn't allow the fuel to catch fire. And quite truly, with these results, we went again to Navy Research Lab doing the testing, and as expected then, or to our pleasant surprise, the formulation that we tested, a couple of formulations were tested at Navy Research Lab. We passed, or we extinguished both the fuel fires, one, the gasoline and also the jet fuel. The extinguishing time was 50 to 56 second with gasoline and 28-second with the jet fuel. But more importantly, the burn back resistance time. The burn back resistance time for gasoline was 7 minutes and 15 seconds, much longer than what is there in the mil spec. Mil spec requires you around about 4 minutes, not around about, it's 4 minutes. And the burn back resistance time for the jet fuel is more than 9 minutes, very close to 10 minutes. It was 9 minutes and 40 seconds. So excellent results that we got for the formulations which were tested on 28 square feet fire. We started working more in the lab and started developing a correlation between what we saw in the lab testing and what we were seeing in the 28 square feet fire at NRL. So the small scale testing, and this slide is very important for people who are trying to enter into this area, who have limited resources like us, having no capability to test it frequently on the large scale fires. So this slide is very important. So we did these small scale fire tests and we started looking into various observations. We looked into how long the foam that we have developed takes to extinguish this fire. And we didn't find a good correlation between the extinguishing time that we were getting on a smaller scale and what we were getting when we did it at 28 square feet. As you can see in the table, the extinguishing time for different foams were very similar. But what really changed, or what was the major observation that we had which was so strongly linked with the observation at 28 square feet, there was the foam stability, and which is also related to the interaction of the fuel vapor with the foam. So as you can see in the table, if the foam stability is between 3 to 4 minutes, and what is the foam stability? I like to define it here. The foam stability, according to us, is the time that it takes to develop one hole in a foam blanket after the fire has been extinguished. So you extinguish the fire in that small scale, and then you wait for the time that the diameter of the hole doesn't matter, that you are for the first time that when you're able to see the surface of the fuel. So when that foam stability is 3 to 4 minutes, it's not able to extinguish. It fails the gasoline, and it fails on the jet fuel on a 28 square feet fire. And even the burn back resistance time, it fails over there too. And when that foam stability goes to from 7 to 9, that is when you start seeing the impact of that foam on jet fuel at a 28 square feet. That is where it passes on the jet fuel, but again fails miserably on the gasoline to an extent that it fails to extinguish the gasoline fire. But when the foam stability goes from like 20 minutes to like 25 minutes, that is the minimum time that we saw that once that is achieved on a small scale, then we had some confidence that it is going to pass the testing at 28 square feet. So with the foam stability of 20 to 25 minutes, we were able to get a foam which passed the mil-spec requirements on a 28 square feet. Together with that, further improvement, like in the red, what you see in the foam stability of around about 1 hour to 1 hour and 20 minutes. In that case scenario, your burn back resistance performance on a 28 square feet fire is what I said is above 7 minutes or above 9 minutes. There's some relation between the expansion ratio that you get it, both on the lab scale and in the mil-spec nozzle, on the extinguishing time and the burn back that gets in there. The mil-spec says around about 7 and above. And our observation is also if you have a foam very close to like with an expansion ratio of 8 to 10, it's a very good window. I'm not saying above 10, it's not going to extinguish, or less than 8, we're not going to, but this is what our observations are. Another critical aspect, this is another slide here showing what I meant by fuel foam interaction or the foam stability. We tested the formulation that we developed in the lab and which passed the mil-spec requirement. We tested it against some of the commercial F3s which are available, and we started looking into the foam stability of the formulation. On the top is a F3 formulation, a commercial F3 formulation. It remains stable on the fuel surface. This is gasoline, alcohol-free gasoline, and it remains stable for around about 20 minutes. That's when I said that you see a hole, and overall the blanket almost completely diminishes in about half an hour, but the formulation that we developed remains stable on the hot fuel surface for, as I said, close to like 1 hour. So in around about 30 minutes, we don't even see a significant level of decrease in the foam height with the formulation on an alcohol-free gasoline. The question that we encountered quite early when we even started thinking about using ionic liquids is the toxicity of ionic liquids. Many of the ionic liquids are known to be toxic, and for us, that was a concern. So we did a very systematic study, even before doing all this testing in a very systematic study where we studied the various ionic liquids. When I say the change in the cationic group, the change in the anionic group, the chain length, starting from C4 to like C14. We looked into the toxicity of that against the fat head minnow fish. The testing was done according to the EPA standard, and we were able to identify some of the ionic liquids which had a very little impact on the survival rate of these fish. For a 30 to like 20 mg per liter of a concentration, 30 mg per liter, and 60 mg of liter, the survival rate of the fathead minnow was above 95%. We also tested the formulation which passed the mil-spec at 10, 30, and 60. Again, according to the EPA standard, at a third-party lab, and found the survival rate of above 95%. The earlier slide we did the testing for 48 hours. The mil-spec requires the test to be done at 96 hours. So we did that too, and the survival rate is again 95%. So in conclusion, what did we achieve? We formulated a surface active ionic liquid based fluorine free formulation which meets the mil-spec requirement on the fire extinguishing and the burn back resistance time on the jet fuel and the gasoline. And according to us and our findings, that the ionic liquids are very good candidates for fluorine-free formulations. I know there has been other initiative too, and what we found is not like it's not a drop-in replacement. You have to understand the interactions or the chemistries that will change with the addition of ionic liquid to any drop-in replacement if we want to do it. Everything changes if you change even a single molecule in the formulation. And foam stability, as I explained here, is a good parameter in the lab scale testing to predict what is going to happen at a 28 square foot pan fuel pool fire. Fuel foam interaction and foam stability at the air liquid, and more importantly, at fuel foam interfaces are critical to achieve the desired fire suppression. You may have a positive spreading coefficient. You may have a very low surface tension. You may have a very good dynamic surface tension. But if the molecules in the foam are interacting with the fuel vapors or the fuel molecules at elevated temperature, that is significantly going to impact the foam stability and is going to impact the fire extinguishing performance, including the burn back resistance. Overall, the benefit to the Department of Defense is we have another formulation which has the potential to meet all the requirements specified in the new mil-spec guidelines, a formulation which is 100% biodegradable. We did that analysis too, the BOD over the COD in 16 days. The BOD to COD ratio is 1. And the formulation moving forward, we really feel that the ionic liquid surfactant will also have some applications for Class A fires, including wildfires, and some of the papers that I have read, the ionic liquids also have very good potential for enhanced oil recovery. That's all from my side. It's questions.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jaspreet. The first question we have for you is from the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. For the testing that you did the gasoline fuel that you used contain any ethanol?
No, these were ethanol-free testing that we did it, and the mil-spec requires ethanol-free. So all the 28 square feet fire testing that we did it is with ethanol-free. But yes, in the lab, initially we did use some ethanol containing gasoline, and the chemistries are totally different. What works on an ethanol free gasoline may or may not work on an ethanol containing gasoline.
Thank you so much. This next question is from toencapsulate.com. Did you measure the vapor pressure change over the lifetime of the foam blanket?
No, we didn't measure the vapor pressure changes during any of the testings.
Great, thank you. The next few questions are from S3 Consulting. The first one has to do with the higher expansion ratio that you talked about. It appears that the ER provided better times for fire resistance and drainage. Could that be another pursuit or a line of research for you guys?
Yeah, well, the expansion ratio definitely is a critical for us. But as I explained earlier, you may have a foam which has a very high expansion ratio, and let's call it the higher expansion ratio anywhere between 8 to 10, or even let's say higher. And I'll explain later that why I'm not so a fan of a higher expansion ratio. But if the fuel is interacting with the surfactant molecule, it may not work. So initially, we had a very high expansion ratio foam. The other aspect is for the foam with a very high expansion ratio, the amount of fluid that it carries is little. And for that reason, the cooling effect that it brings is also compromised. But yes, it has been part of our research where we looked into the role of expansion ratio in achieving the targeted extinguishing time and the burn back resistance time.
Great, thank you. And a follow-on question, what was the average bubble diameter for your ionic liquid-based foams?
Yeah, and don't remember on the top of my head. Those were the DFA analysis. We did it very initially. I don't remember it now. Yeah, sorry about it.
No worries. Um, and a few more questions. How did the results from the customized Ross Miles column compare with those obtained with the DFA?
Yeah, great question. So our most of our foam stability or even the expansion ratio experiment that we did in the initial phase of the project was with DFA. And what we observed was that there was not much of a difference between one formulation versus the other formulation in terms of, let's say, the 25% drainage time. Um, the I don't remember the size, but we didn't see much difference in the size of the bubble or even the number of bubble count or the bubble counts that you were getting. We were not seeing that major differences from one formulation to another. So it became very difficult for us to predict the characteristics of the foam based upon the DFA analysis. Probably the limitation was the way we were doing an experiment. I don't know, but we didn't get much useful information for our purposes. And what I also really feel is with the DFA analysis, with the air bubble flowing underneath the solution and the foam being formed, the time it takes is very short. The column is very short to have a meaningful information on the quality of the foam that is generated. That is one part. The second part is, again, this is limitation on the equipment that we had it. That equipment didn't allow us to do an experiment, or we were scared of doing an experiment where we introduced the fuel in that column and then study the impact of the fuel or the fuel vapor at different temperature in there. So for DFA, those were the limitations. But on the contrary, when we modified the Ross Mile column and had the two compartment where we could control the temperature, so we were able to determine the impact of temperature on the foam stability and the air liquid interface. And then with the fuel, with the type of fuel, we did those experiments with gasoline. We did those experiments with hexane. Latest, we did those experiments even with the kerosene. So that allowed the Ross Mile column allowed us, without worrying about the damaging the DFA or without worrying about the temperature control on that, we were able to look into different fuel types at different temperature and how they interacted with the foam. And we looked into the foam height. We looked into the foam quality in terms of right there, and I didn't share some of the images that we took it in there, how the bubble size increases or decreases, how let's say what we also saw was that the fuel vapors sometimes get trapped in between. So you can actually see a gap between the fuel column and the foam. It lifts it up. So all those observations were really useful for us to optimize the formulation and study the interaction of the fuel vapors with the various formulation and the foams that we got it with those formulations.
Great. Thank you so much for this fantastic response. At this point, we're going to pull Perrin back into the discussion, and I'm going to ask you both, and we'll start with Perrin. Perrin, you alluded to this a little bit, but in terms of steps for your research, what are those steps, and when do you expect your final report to be completed?
The next step for this particular test, we plan on starting on next FY26. So some of the stuff we were looking into is the ILDFA flooring added to the water mist to a high pressure water mist system as well. What else we were looking at? I forgot the rest, but yeah, that's one of the main things we wanted to take a look at.
Great. And when do you expect your final report to be posted?
Probably the summer of 26, next summer.
Right.
Yes. Might not maybe the end of the year, but yes, that's our goal.
Great. Thank you so much. And as a reminder, if any of you have follow-on questions, you could contact our speakers. The slides are available for download. The link is in the chat box, and their contact information is in the PDF that you should be able to easily access. So Jaspreet, I'll pose the same question to you. Next steps for your work, and when will your final report be available?
Yeah. So this project, the SERDP project, goes up till the end of August. So that's when the report will be submitted in probably a couple of months' time. So by the end of this year, this report should be available. The next step is we already have got the next phase, which is the ESTCP, where the technology demonstration and validation will be done again at the Navy Research Lab. And what I really feel for us, as far as the development side is concerned, or as the demonstration side is concerned, there are testing concerned with the seawater compatibility. It's very critical. John initially talked about that. There is test about the half strength, the double strength, and some of the other critical tests in terms of the size of the fire, right? So there's a 28 square feet we have already done. The next is 50 square feet, and then other types of testing. So we soon will be working on the ESTCP as far as the demonstration and validation of the technology is concerned.
Great. Well, thank you both again.
I got one more thing to add. For this particular test that I just presented, we already have the final report for this test. We have sent it to SERDP and ESTCP. So we have sent the final report for this particular test. We plan on starting another set of water mist tests this fall. But yeah, we have already completed the final report.
Great. So
sorry for the confusion.
Line for review. No worries, no worries. Well, thank you, Perrin, and thank you both. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up with a few reminders. Please visit the SERDP and ESTCP webinar webpage to register for upcoming webinars. There is a PFAS treatment webinar coming up in 2 weeks, and another WP webinar in early August. And before we conclude, as John mentioned, it is a reminder that both the audio and a copy of the presentation of today's session will be archived on the webinar webpage in case you would like to refer to them in the future. And we would really appreciate it if you can take a minute or two to complete a quick survey that will pop up on your screen at this time. This concludes today's webcast. Thank you for joining us.